Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we want to write a C++ program that prints the following checkboard pattern. So let's look at it before we jump into Visual Studio C++. So let's count how many rows we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 rows. And then how many columns? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8 columns. So let's think about it. So for every other row, we have a space before the star. So for row number 2, we have a space. Row number 4, we have a space. Row number 6, we have a space. And row number 8, we have a space. So what we want to do first, we need a for statement for the number of rows. So we need a for statement. Let's initialize here let's call it row, or we can call it I, it doesn't matter. So we're going to start with 1, and then as long as row is less than or equal than 8, because we need 8 rows, we're going to increment. So I, or row, plus plus. And then let's see what we want to do inside this for loop. So as we notice, for even row, we need a space before we start printing star followed by space. So to check if a row is even, so we can use the remainder operator. So the remainder operator, if any number is, we divide by 2 and the remainder is 0, so we know this is an even number. So what we can do row and use the remainder operator. See if we divide it by 2. If the remainder is 0, then we know row is even. So what we're going to use inside this for loop, we're going to use a if statement. If row is divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0, then what we're going to do, we're going to print, we're going to use cout to print. We're going to print a space. So next we need a for loop to print the stars in each row. So for this, let's use another for loop, which is inside this first for loop. And let's initialize, we can call it J or we can call it column. Let's initialize it to 1. As long as column is less than or equal than 8, we're going to increment. Because in each row we have 8 stars, so we have 8 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So inside this for loop, what we want to do, simply we want to print a star followed by a space. And then there's another curly bracket for this one. And this basically should be our program. So let's see what's happening. So let's try to explain this code. So in the first iteration, so we have row equal 1. And then we're going to check, is row less than or equal than 8? Yes. Then we're going to execute this for loop. And then we're going to execute what's inside this for loop. And now we're going to come here and check. If we divide it by 2, is the remainder 0? No. So we're not going to print any spaces before the stars. We're going to move to this for loop. Now we're going to initialize column to 1. And then we're going to check, is this condition satisfied? Is it less or equal than 8? Yes. Then we're going to come and print a star. Let me put my output here. We're going to print a star followed by space. Type S for space. And then what we're going to do, we're going to increment column. We're going to increment from 1 to 2. So when we increment to 2, we're going to check the condition. Is it less than or equal than 8? True. Then also we're going to print a star followed by space. And then keep doing this until this condition is not satisfied anymore. So we're going to do it a couple times. When column equal 8, we're going to print the last star followed by space. And then we're going to increment I to 9. This condition is not satisfied anymore. So here we need a new line, because after we're done with this one, we're going to need a end line. And then now we're going to go back to this for loop for the second iteration. So we're going to increment row from 1 to 2. So now row is equal to 2. Then we're going to continue executing our code. Is row, if we divide it by 2, the remainder is 0? Yes. 2 divided by 2, we get remainder 0. So what we're going to do for this one, we're going to print the space here. And then we're going to move to this for loop and also initialize column to 1. And then check this condition is true. Then we're going to print, after the space, we're going to print a star followed by space and keep repeating this until this condition is not satisfied anymore. So we start a new line. And then also we repeat this. So see how we started the first row with a star, but we started the second row with a space. So now let's move to Visual Studio and write this code and execute it to make sure it's working as expected. So we'll start a new project, empty project, next. And then I'm going to save it in my download area inside a folder called CPP. And this is my 5th C++ project in this one. So I'm going to call it 5_ checkerboard. Enter to create the project. Then now we're going to need some source file. Let's call it main. Zoom in, and now we can start typing our code. We need include input output library, IOStream, then using namespace std. And then we're going to write everything inside the main function that will return an integer type. And start this one. And then at the end, we're going to return 0 if everything executes without any error. So as we said, we're going to need a for loop for the row. So we're going to call it row or I, it doesn't matter, equal 1. The condition is as long as row is less than or equal than 8, we're going to increment row by 1 after each iteration. So row plus plus. And now inside it, we're going to have the if statement. If row with remainder, when we divide by 2, if the remainder is 0, so what we're going to do, we're going to see out print a space. That's for the if statement. And then after this, we're going to have another for loop. Let's call it int call for columns, start from 1. And then as long as it's less than or equal than 8, increment by 1. And what we're going to do inside this for loop, we're going to print a star followed by space. So star, space, semicolon. And then after this for loop, we're going to start a new line. So cout end line or /n for new line between double quotation if you want to use /n. So this should be it. Let's debug it and see if it works as expected. And this is the shape we printed out. So it's working as expected. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful on printing patterns and for loops.
Enjoyed this video? Subscribe to the Computer Engineering Notebook for more tutorials on computer architecture, embedded systems, and hardware design. And hit the bell to catch the next one.